And now moving from the hot streak of the Carolina Panthers, we're going to segue into a new segment that we have not touched base on. That is the current culture of tackling in all levels of high school, college, and NFL. But we will focus primarily on NFL. We have a guest speaker with us, Daniel, actually my older brother, and newlywed, Andy Johnson. So thank you for taking some time out on this. Actually, it's a little past midnight now, but thank you for taking your time to join us here on Driveway Talk.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Daniel, for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing my first ever sports talk experience with you guys, aside from getting frustrated with some of the local guys on the radio. So hopefully this goes a little bit better.
And so do we. So give us a little background. Of course, Daniel and I know all about you, but give some of the listeners a little background of teams you pull for, what you're currently doing, just what's going on in your life.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I just got married to my wife, Hannah, and been married for going on 3 weeks now. So I'm enjoying that. And I am a Packers fan on the verge of collapse, waiting on Aaron Rodgers' small fractured collarbone to heal. Other than the Packers, I'm a all-local guy, big Hurricanes fan, big Carolina fan, Bobcats fan, and getting kind of frustrated how many games we're winning in Charlotte. But I guess it's hard to hope for failure, but maybe I'll just do that quietly.
Yeah, it seems the times we want the Bobcats to win, opposite happens. Now they're finally winning, want them to lose. So
yeah, especially after the night the 3 young freshmen put up.
Yes, and
one would not be upset with failure from their NBA team at this time.
And that can be a podcast all on itself as far as the college basketball season started. But we'll start off getting on topic now in the tackling culture of the NFL. And I'll open the floor for y'all to discuss it some if you want to. Start with Andy. What's something that you've seen over the past even 3 or 4 years in the culture of tackling in the National Football League?
Well, I think the rise of career-threatening and life-threatening injuries. I don't think anyone will choose to ignore or choose to hide. You've got the huge $700 million plus lawsuit settled by the NFL recently with former players, and I think any and everything that can be done to prevent that is wonderful for the sport. We all want it to continue, and we all would like to see our teams play on, and those things must be done. But that's about where I draw the line as far as my understanding of the subject goes. And Daniel, I'd actually like to let you start off on this. I feel like people have gotten to hear me a lot starting out here, and I'll probably jump in and add to what you've got to say.
Well, India, it's one of those touchy subjects. I discussed with someone the other day on why they stopped watching football, and he described it as softening football. I mean, NFL, he's going back to the glory days of the 70s and 80s where you pick up a guy and you just slam the snot out of him. And I'm not saying you should do that. I'm not saying you should, look to injure or hurt someone, but at this time, it's like everyone's got a pink jersey on. Like everybody, at the quarterback, you can't touch him. You got to touch him between the shoulders and the waist. Exactly. Can't touch him around his ankles, his knees, his feet, anywhere like that. You go toward his head. I understand that one completely, but as a receiver coming across the middle, I would rather have you hit me up high because it saves my knees, and my knees and legs are what make my money in my book. If I was a receiver tight end, so
2 words: form tackling. Every Sunday, every Monday night, and the occasional Thursday night, we are watching the supposed greatest athletes in the world in this sport. Where on earth has a breakdown, square up, and wrap tackle gone? I understand the speed of the game is as fast as it's ever been. But last time I checked, that athleticism is not limited to the offensive side of the ball. Past couple of years, excuse me, we've got repeat offenders galore with this tackling rule. And fines are not seeming to do the trick. Things are just so haywire that players, playing the game the right way are getting fined for the actions of, say, Merriweather for Washington.
One of your favorite athletes.
How much longer is the guy going to get to play the game completely? These high chin to helmet targeted hits. His comments as of late, well, I guess we're going to have to go low. This is paraphrasing. I guess we're going to have to go low. I guess we're going to have to end people's careers. And I believe it was a hit on Danny Woodhead where it appeared he was trying to do just that. I saw earlier in the year his hit on Eddie Lacy, completely blatant to the helmet. Tried to lay the same hit on James Starks, and it ended up backfiring on him, which, due to my bias, I did not mind seeing at all. And, trying to look at it from the other end of the spectrum, the hit that injured Randall Cobb. I don't think that hit was malicious or dirty, but, the young defender had plenty of time, especially with Cobb catching the ball with his back upfield, to break down, wrap up, and make a tackle. And I don't know if people have played too much Madden where they're using the hit stick and they like to do it on the real field, but I completely do not agree with the fact that these guys cannot make traditional and technique-savvy form tackles. These are the best athletes in the world at this sport. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point as far as I think it's just a culture we live in now. It's just a technology-driven world with social media, and everyone wants to be on ESPN #1 play for a big hit. It's not how it used to be when before people made form giving tackles. Everyone wants to make just the big play, quote unquote. Everyone wants to be that guy who's trending on Twitter, and I think that's a big deal with it. It's a social media driven world. Everyone wants to be known as that person, and that's what you have these great athletes who made their career in college and growing up in middle school and high school making perfect form tackling, which got them to this upper level. Now that they're here, they're just all about the fame now and making the big hit.
Right, and I think one thing that I've noticed a lot lately is, the receivers and stuff. Yeah, they're trying to make themselves smaller as they come across the field, and that's not giving a defender an opportunity to hit. Where, like you said, Andy, drive them and form tackle them. You try and drive a guy, you form tackle a guy, he lowers his head, so you make head-to-head contact, you get in trouble, and yet, there's no win for any defensive player. There's not been a rule in the last 5 years that says, the defensive player gets some kind of advantage. It's all about illegal contact with the receiver. The quarterback, you can't touch him. Two-hand touch the quarterback. You can't do these things. I mean, I'm not saying I want to see a guy get lit up, but I have no problem with the form tackle coming across the middle. But I think these offensive guys are getting smarter and smarter of saying, I need to duck, and then I get a free 15 yards.
And with just interjecting quickly here, probably, if not the game's greatest player, definitely in his position, Adrian Peterson. Everyone loves watching him run. He's a great, stand-up guy, ambassador for the league. 9 times out of 10, his first move out of the hole is lowering the crown of his helmet and making contact with it. And they specifically enacted a rule that can punish offensive players for using the crown of their helmet as a weapon. But, Adrian Peterson's one of the most violent runners in the NFL, and I've never seen him called for using his helmet as a weapon. So, it is a big, big mess. I just do not side with the guys complaining about, where are we supposed to tackle? But I also think that offensive players, with the extendable arm, stiff arm, and being able to lower your helmet and use that as a weapon against defenders. I mean, it's a big mess.
I think it definitely is, and I think another thing, maybe we can touch on is this targeting rule in college. What do you think about that, Andy and Ben? I mean, that's a tough one too here.
I'll let you go ahead and talk about it since.
Well, I think I'm gonna just use the recent Carolina State game as too much of an example about that. So maybe you can speak about it with a little less clouded judgment.
I think it does make it easier, honestly, being in Charlotte, not being around, like the whole Carolina State hype. I'm kind of out here on the the outskirts as far as not being so frustrating with the rivalry will always be there. But was your question, Daniel, regarding as far as what's my take on the new targeting rule?
What do you think about the targeting rule? Do you think it's a good thing, a bad thing? What do you think?
Like I said, it's one of those. It's like a cloudy subject, because you want to have these players' safety, but then again, it takes away part of the game. But my take on that is that these rules had to be made because you can make the rules. The NFL is getting soft and stuff like that. But all right, take these two people for example. Take an example of like a linebacker in the 1960s compared to somebody now. Like a linebacker in the 1960s could probably barely run, probably above a 5-second 40. They were slow, they were powerful, but they were slow. Now you have people like Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers on the outside rushing line. These people are 6'7", 250, the same size as a linebacker, but they had the speed of some bigger running backs. Like the speed with the power is so much bigger now than it used to be that rules had to be made because the rules initially were not made for these athletes to be this fast and this freakishly big and stuff. So rules had to be made to protect the players because the original rules were made for far lesser athletic players. They were still athletic back in the day, but not as much as they are now. So I think that's what's so frustrating is that we're going by the beginning rules where players weren't so athletic and now they are. So some things have to be made to keep the players healthy, but sometimes it gets a little too touchy, and that goes with the judgment call of the referee. So some will call it, some will not. So I agree to some extent in the target rule, but sometimes it's just pretty much a judgment call with how the ref feels the play is happening and stuff like that. But rules have to be made to somehow tame these freak athletes that are playing in major D1 sports and in NFL.
Sure. Yeah, I certainly agree that the game has changed, but I think with regards to the collegiate style of coaching and culture, a Brandon Merriweather would not remain on a college football field after multiple penalties of his kind.
Mm-hmm.
It simply would not happen.
Mm-hmm.
No coach who is sane would continue to play a player who just continues to make plays as he does that would result in ejections in college football games. So while I do also agree that athletes are a whole new breed of animal these days, they're also that same breed of animal on the defensive side of the ball. Is it tougher to get low and wrap? It sure is. And if an offensive player comes at you with the crown of his helmet down, you don't have a choice but to go for his legs. But that's all he's presenting you, so that's what you got to take. I completely disagree with the defensive style of ball where you are, I hate to bring him up again, but where you are a Merriweather leaping for Todd Heap's head twice in a game. That's not because that's all you've been presented. That's because you're trying to make a malicious high hit. And, offensive guys are more athletic, so are defensive guys. Be a world-class athlete, make a play.